Hi everyone, my name is Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and today I'm coming to you with part 1 of my April wrap-up. I did not plan to do a 2-part wrap-up, but it has become necessary. I read 22 books in April. How did this happen? I really don't know. It's probably one of the best reading months I've ever had. I know I did 28 and 28 in February, but that was a pre-planned situation. This just happened. I did not plan to read this many books, but I have, and I actually had a lot of 5 stars as well, which is probably why I read so much, just because I was enjoying what I was reading so much. Anyway, we're gonna do it as a part 1, part 2 situation, or these videos are gonna be way too long. But part 1's up obviously right now. Part 2 is gonna go up on Saturday. Let's dive in and see what I read in April. So on the very first day of April, I did read a book in 8 hours live on Sprints with Shell, and the book that we read was Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Raybourn. I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was just okay for me. This follows 4 female assassins. They have been friends and colleagues for many, many years. They are now retiring. They have reached the age of 60, 65, and they've decided to not be assassins anymore and retire. They go on a retirement cruise, and something happens on that retirement cruise to make them realize that they are in danger. They don't know why, and they have to protect themselves as well as figure out what is going on. The part about this book that I didn't like was actually the pacing. It was so fast-paced that there was never any downtime, and there was really nothing linking events. It was, we were here doing something and there was a major event, and then we were all of a sudden in another country doing another major event, and it was just very fast-paced. I never felt like I got to know the characters really at all in this book, and I really want to know my characters. And I don't think I really got a good grasp of who these people were. And that was my main issue with this book. But it still got a 3 stars. I did read it in 8 hours. And I still think we had a fun time reading it on Sprints. It just wasn't my favorite book we've done that for. But oh wait, because now we're going into a stretch of fantastic reading. Because after I finished that, I went on a 5-star binge. I don't think I have ever had this many 5 stars in a row. I do not know what happened. I was doing various videos. Some of them you have seen and some of them you haven't yet. But the books I had to read were fantastic. So we have a slew of 5 stars coming up. The first of my 5-star binge was Jar of Hearts by Jennifer Hillier. I have heard amazing things about this book, but I was unprepared for how amazing this thriller was. This may be one of my favorite thrillers of all time. It's up there. I really loved this book. 14 years ago, Gio's best friend Angela went missing. Now Angela's remains have been found, and we know that Angela is a victim of a serial killer who actually was Gio's high school boyfriend, Calvin. Gio loved Calvin, he was her first love, and Angela was his first victim. We see Gio as they go through a trial over Angela's remains. We see new things starting to happen, and who is it happening to, and what is going on. I can't say much about this book because a lot of it would be spoilers, but this is a serial killer thriller, and I just loved every minute of this book. It was absolutely fantastic. Jennifer Hillier outdid themselves with this book, and it was definitely easily a 5-star read. The next book I gave 5 stars to was Kate Morton and Homecoming. I had the arc of this. This is the advanced reader's copy given to me by Simon & Schuster's. Thank you so much to them for giving this to me. I love Kate Morton's writing, and this was top tier for me. This is somewhat of a historical fiction mystery family saga, if that makes any sense. It follows Jess. Jess is a reporter but has to come home to Australia from London because her grandmother has fallen down the stairs and is in the hospital. She does not understand why her grandmother was in the attic to begin with, let alone why she would go there and fall down the stairs. So Jess starts to do some investigating into what is going on with her grandmother. It takes her down a path of a hidden secret in her family of a murder that happened 60 years previous in this family, where an entire branch of her family was murdered. We see the past timeline, the current timeline, we see Jess discovering what's going on, and it is really, really fantastic. Kate Morton can weave together two timelines in a way that is seamless and just absolutely fantastic. This was an easy 5-star for me, and I really need to read more of Kate Morton's books. This is only my second one, but I have absolutely adored every one that I have read. Then after Homecoming, I finally read Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. And again, 5 stars. Why it's taken me 3 years to read Ninth House, I don't know. I don't know why it's taken me so long. I am going immediately into Hellbent though. It's on my May TBR. This is happening because I loved Ninth House so much. This is a fantasy dark academia that follows Galaxy Stern, and Galaxy goes by the name Alex. Alex is part of a secret society that actually polices all the secret societies at Yale. There are, I think, 9 secret societies at Yale who use various types of magic to gain power for the people in their society, and the Ninth House has to kind of oversee that and make sure that everything is above board and nothing is happening that shouldn't be happening. Of course, let's be honest, it wouldn't be much of a book if something wasn't happening. So lots of things happen, and we definitely leave on a cliffhanger, and I will be reading Hellbent this month because I need to know what happens after the conclusion of Ninth House. Desperately. I love the writing style of this book. I love the fantasy and magical elements. I loved the dark academia vibes. There was nothing about this book that I didn't like, and obviously I gave it 5 stars. I can't say enough. And I'm sure you're thinking, Brittany, 3 5-stars in a row, that's plenty. That's amazing you did 3 5-stars in a row. Well, I actually did 4, because then I read The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. This is another 5-star book. It had to be. This follows Calla. Calla was born in Alaska. Her mother was a city girl who fell in love with an Alaskan bush pilot, but realized after a couple years of living in Alaska that there was no way she could live this life. She leaves to go back to Toronto, and Ren does not follow her. Ren is Calla's dad. He remains in Alaska running his business called Alaska Wild, which is an airplane company that does like shipping and stuff throughout Alaska. Calla is now, I believe, 25, hasn't seen her father since she was 2, hasn't talked to him since she was 12. So there's definitely a huge estrangement. She, however, finds out that her father has cancer and goes to Alaska to visit him, see him, and try to mend fences and maybe have a better relationship with her father. When she arrives, she meets Jonah, who is a cranky, grumpy bush pilot himself. They are definitely enemies at first, but obviously this is a romance. So, you know, a romance does happen between Calla and Jonah. And Calla has to decide if she's going to stay in Alaska or go back home, and what kind of life she's going to live. This had me feeling all the feels. I laughed, I cried, I had so many emotions during this book. Highly recommend and cannot wait to continue this series. Then I read The True Loves Bookshop by Annie Raines. This is the 3rd book in a series. However, when I looked into it, it seemed that they could be read as standalone. And really the only thing intertwining them is that they happen in this small town. This is marketed as a contemporary romance. I would disagree that that is the case. I would say it is more of a contemporary fiction that has a romance in it. There's a lot of other moving parts. This follows Tess. Tess owns the local bookstore at this small town, and Tess's husband died 3 years ago. All of a sudden, River shows up in Tess's bookshop. River is her husband's ex-best friend. They haven't really seen River since the day of their wedding when he tried to stop the wedding. He had very good reasons for this, but Tess never knew the reasons for why River tried to stop the wedding. And Jared, her husband, actually lied to her about why he did it. So they start off as enemies. She cannot forgive River for what he did, and she is still grieving her husband, really. River is a PI and starts looking into Jared's death, and Tess eventually starts to help him look into this. secrets come out, things happen, and also they have a romance as part of it. Like I said, this ended up being a 3-star book for me, and I think it was more that just this type of contemporary fiction is just not my favorite and wouldn't be something that I would necessarily gravitate toward. I like more of a contemporary romance than a contemporary fiction. But I still am glad that I read it and got it off my shelf. Then I played a round of Would You Rather. I will link the video somewhere here. And the book that ended up winning that round of Would You Rather was The Paris Apartment by Lucy Foley. I went into this with very high hopes. I loved The Guest List. The Guest List is one of my favorite whodunits of all time. This did not quite live up to that for me. I ended up giving this 3 stars, and really it was just that the characters in this were just not as good as the characters in The Guest List. They were eccentric, but I just never really latched on to any of them. This follows Jess. Jess has come to Paris to stay with her brother, Ben. Jess is down on her luck and needs to stay with Ben for a little while to kind of figure out what's going on in her life. When she arrives, Ben is nowhere to be seen. Ben has disappeared, and there are definitely clues to the fact that something maybe untoward has happened to Ben. Jess starts to investigate the apartment that he lives in and the people who live in the apartment, and we see how maybe each of these people have had dealings with Ben, and maybe does any of them have a reason to want something to happen to Ben. I did have a good time reading it, but for me, the character work was just not as strong, and it did come out with a 3-star. The next book I picked up was Pages & Co. by Anna James, Tilly and the Book Wanderers. I had to read this as part of my Timmy's TBR. This was so cute. This follows Tilly. It is a middle grade. It follows Tilly, and Tilly is raised in her grandparents' bookshop. Tilly's mother disappeared when she was young. We don't know what happened to Tilly's mother, really, but Tilly's mother is absent, and Tilly has been raised by her grandparents in their bookshop. All of a sudden, characters from Tilly's favorite books start appearing in the bookshop. We meet Anne of Green Gables, Alice in Wonderland, and because of this, we find out Tilly is actually a book wanderer, so are her grandparents, and she has the ability to travel into books. Some hijinks happen, and we follow Tilly going on some very fun adventures. This is such a fun, whimsical fantasy, and I definitely will be continuing this series over the next coming months because it was just a fun time. It's short, it's little, it has really cute illustrations, everything you want in a middle grade. I ended up giving this 4 stars. As part of a Cyrus-themed vlog, I read The Boyfriend Project by Farah Rashan, and I had such a fun time with this book. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This follows Samaya. Samaya has been catfished on the internet. Samaya finds out she has been catfished through Twitter. Some other woman who was catfished by the same man is tweeting on Twitter. So they show up where they know this man is to tell him off. When she shows up, 2 other women show up as well, and they find out they've all been catfished by this man and become friends. And this was my favorite part of the book. This friendship by these 3 women was absolutely fantastic. I loved the banter between the women. I loved the vibes. It is everything that you want a group of women to be. It was fantastic. It was my favorite part of the book. So they decide to give up on men for 6 months and do the boyfriend project where they are done with men and they are going to work on themselves. Samaya starts working on an app that she has been wanting to develop for a long time but didn't have the time to do so. Then Samaya goes to work and notices there's a new man working at her work, and that is Daniel. And Daniel is very cute. And Samaya has to decide if Daniel is worth pursuing and maybe trying to work around the boyfriend project to date Daniel. The next book I read, actually I started in March. Libby took the audiobook away from me and I wanted to finish it with the audio because I had read most of it with the audio. So I waited until Libby gave it back and finished it this month. And that was Hollowpox, The Hunt for Morgan Crow. This is the 3rd book in the Nevermore series. It's the most recent release. The next book comes out sometime this year. So I am caught up on this series. It is a middle grade series that follows Morgan Crow. Morgan, at the age of 12, is known as a cursed child and is destined to die on her 12th birthday. At midnight of her 12th birthday, Jupiter comes and saves her and whisks her off to the land of Nevermore, where she can start attending school at the Wondrous Society because she has a very rare knack. I will not go into what that knack is because it would spoil the first book. In this book, we see a pandemic break out in Nevermore that is affecting all the animal ones. Animal ones are animals that have basically consciousness and can speak and kind of have a similar autonomy to humans. This disease is only affecting the animal ones, and we see people start to ostracize the animal ones, as well as people trying to figure out how to stop this disease. I do want to mention that because if you're not ready to deal with pandemic things, this may not be the book for you. I know for some people we're not ready, and I totally understand that. But I did have a really great time with this. It was a fun middle grade. I love the Nevermore series. So this one ended up at 4 stars, and I cannot wait to read the next book at the end of the year. I have one more book to talk about in this part 1. Can you believe this is only part 1 of what I've read this month? Like, what have I been doing? How did I read all these books? I don't know. I don't know what happened. This month was intense. But the last one I'm going to talk about in this video is Hani and Issue's Guide to Fake Dating. This book I actually read the first 2 chapters of during a try-a chapter, I think in February. It was a while ago. And I've been meaning to continue, never got around to it. And finally, Peace Talks was that time. This is a YA fake dating rom-com that follows Hani and Issue. Hani tells her friends that she is bisexual. They say that she is confused. They don't believe her because she's only ever dated men. There are huge, huge, huge triggers for biphobia, racism. It is addressed in the book as it goes on. That is basically the point, but just wanted to let you know that that is there. These friends are just not, we do not love these friends. Anyway, Hani feels the need to prove herself to these friends by starting a fake dating relationship with Issue. Issue agrees to this because Issue wants to be head girl for her own reasons, and Hani is very popular and Hani's friends are very popular, and being associated with them should help her win head girl. This is my first book by this author, and I definitely want to be reading more. I really enjoyed this author's writing style. I loved hearing this author's point of view and just really enjoyed this fake dating book so much. I don't always love a YA book, but I had a really great time reading this and ended up giving it 4 stars. Okay, we've reached the end of part 1 of this wrap up. I will be back on Saturday with part 2, but let me know down in the comments what your favorite read for April was. I would love to know, and I will see you on Saturday with part 2 of this wrap up. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.